Within the Kimetsu no Yaiba universe, there is only one group that can defeat the ultimate evil and his pawns, the Demon Slayer Corps. The origins of the Corps can be easily overlooked due to the other chaotic events within the series, and so for you today we will be diving into their mythos. The Heian period, 794 to 1185. The history of the Demon Slayer Corps begins with a curse. During the Heian period, Kibutsushi Muzan becomes the first demon. His very existence damns the Ubuyashiki clan. The families are related after all. After Muzan's betrayal of humanity, every child born in the Ubuyashiki household is born with weak bodies, dying at less than 30 years old, leaving the family to near extinction. The clan sought guidance from a priest, who instructed them that their destruction could only be stopped if they kill Muzan, who is a distant relative to the Corps' previous leader, Kageya Ubuyashiki. Funnily enough, Kageya and Muzan also share similar physical characteristics. It's another aspect that reinforces the Ubuyashiki family and Muzan as foils, opposites of the same coin. The priest family is intertwined with the Ubuyashiki. Kageya's wife is a former priestess from that bloodline. Muzan's very nature can be best summarized in Kageya's own words: "The clan gave birth to a monster like you." Muzan is the curse the Ubuyashiki family must exercise, which leads to the birth of the Demon Slayer Corps. This organization has two goals: to eradicate Muzan and his legion. To join the Corps, a Demon Slayer must first complete final selection and can work their way up the ranks. Now, about final selection, it is a brutal week-long survival test atop a mountain infested with demons. After making it through the dangers, surviving swordsmen are given a crow and allowed to pick the ore for their blade. The katanas themselves are known for changing color, with different breathing styles producing different colors. For example, sun breathers will have a black sword, while a water-breathing user will have a blue sword. This color-changing aspect is a neat indicator that further sets the breathing styles apart. But before we go any further into the Corps, be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss an upload, and smash that like button for some plot armor today. There are exactly 10 ranks, beginning at Mizunoto and ending in Kinoe. Slayers can view their rank because of the Wisteria flower engraving, which is activated by clenching their fist and saying a password. However, the highest tier is reserved for the greatest of swordsmen, the Hashira. To be eligible, Slayers must kill 50 lower level demons or one of the 12 Kizuki. This is a feat in and of itself, considering the 12 Kizuki have killed many swordsmen throughout their long lives. Fun fact, in every era there has been one flame Hashira and one water Hashira. Both water and flame are common styles, plus flame breathing is passed down through generations in the Rengoku home. Besides a gap in power, there is a salary gap between Hashira and other Slayers. The lowest rank is only paid 20,000 yen. In modern terms, this is roughly 157 USD. Due to inflation, this isn't a bad budget for beginner Slayers. Everything was less expensive during that period after all. Meanwhile, the Hashira are paid literally whatever they want. And that's because Hashira are usually assigned to 12 Kizuki missions. It is important to note that all of this money comes from the Ubuyashiki family's ability to see into the future, which also saves the family from disaster. The Hashira can also take on proteges, otherwise known as Suguko. These are swordsmen who will be the Hashira's successor. They either apply and are accepted, or are scouted by a Hashira. While on the subject of powerful swordsmen, there is only one that not only invents breathing styles, but pioneers a golden age for swordsmen. Sengoku period, 1467 to 1615. During the Sengoku era, Yoriichi Tsujikuni taught Slayers breathing techniques, which they used to improve upon established styles. These original techniques were water, flame, wind, thunder, and stone. Interestingly enough, the original breathing styles themselves are all elements, well, except maybe stone. These new techniques allowed Slayers to kill demons more effectively, bringing about a golden era for demon slaying. In fact, these advanced breathing styles awaken marked ones, Slayers who can unlock their true potential via a mysterious mark on their body. There is no other recorded appearance of the Demon Slayer mark besides Yoriichi, who was born with it. Through him, the mark spread to other Slayers, even reaching his own brother. But there is an exchange for this power. Marked ones have their lifespans cut short. According to a legend, Slayers with marks only live to the age of 25. The grim nature of being marked is exactly why Yoriichi's brother, Michikatsu, commits betrayal. While Yoriichi advanced swordsmanship, his brother stunted it. Yoriichi himself not only comes face to face with Muzan, but almost kills the Demon Lord. Meanwhile, Muzan gives Yoriichi's brother a proposal he cannot refuse. If you become a demon, you can live forever. Michikatsu then betrays the Corps by becoming a demon known as Kokushibo, Upper Moon 1, and beheads their leader at the time. His death creates a domino effect within the Corps, with both brothers bringing forth the beginning and the end of advancement for Slayers. Firstly, Yoriichi is exiled exiled from the Demon Slayer Corps, which leads to the Kamado family learning sun breathing. Truthfully, the Kamado family were the best option to be the keepers of such a powerful breathing style. They are able to hide it for centuries as a dance. Secondly, the leader's death also led to the creation of the Kakushi and Swordsmith Village. The Kakushi are responsible for the secrecy the Corps is surrounded in. Despite killing demons and having such iconic garb, the Corps lacks any government recognition. It's peculiar that such a powerful organization is hidden from the government. Yet this can be explained by the non-combatant group within the Corps, the Kakushi. Those members are like a jack of all trades. They serve as a cleanup crew after battles, they sew uniforms, and they carry slayers to and from Swordsmith Village. The village itself is where blades are fixed and created. It is just as secretive as the location of the Corps' headquarters. It may additionally be assumed that bodyguards were also utilized. Hashira themselves could have been bodyguards at this time. However, by the Taisho period, the Ubuyashiki clan hadn't used bodyguards for several generations. If it weren't bad enough, the rise of demons stamped out the Golden Age. Muzan went on to murder slayers, especially sun breathers. Clearly, his near-death experience with Yurichi led to Muzan wanting to eradicate sun breathers entirely. His slaughter almost led to their extinction. Not to mention the Corps itself will continue to grow weaker. The lack of swordsmen continues even 300 years later, since only a handful of swordsmen passed final selection. Yet this drastic change and violence within the Corps' history isn't necessarily well known. The only written account was recorded by a Flame Ashira. Plus, other swordsmen weren't too keen to discuss the mark, considering some didn't even develop it. This, combined with the history being lost due to a lack of records, is exactly why being marked was considered to be nothing but a myth. In fact, in the Taisho period, the only written record that survives simply says, when the marked one arrives, the mark will appear on others around that person. As stated before, the Corps is still active in the Taisho era, a time that sees the death of Muzan and the ending of the Corps. Edo period, 1604 to 1867. During the Edo period, the Wisteria-crested safe houses started occupation. They take care of slayers free of charge as well as offer medical assistance. The family was once saved from demons, so they continue to repay that debt. Providing such hospitality to weary slayers is a greatly needed, if not unique service. This continues even in the Taisho period, as seen when they take care of the Kamaboko squad. Then in the 1860s, almost at the end of the Edo period, a young Sakonji Rokodaki, former Water Ashira, defeats and then traps the infamous hand demon on Mount Fujikasane. Considering the power of this demon and the fact that it was caught by Sakonji, it can be assumed that he was already the Water Ashira at the time. Fun fact, Mount Fujikasane is the exact mountain final selection is held on. Taisho period, 1912 to 1926. Sometime later in the Taisho period, Tanjiro Kamado joins the Demon Slayer Corps. His membership is rather unorthodox considering he carries around his demon sister. Her existence alone is why Tanjiro is put on trial by the Hashira, something Yurichi, as someone with a demon sibling as well, did not experience. This means that this way of formal problem solving was developed after his lifetime. On the topic of time, several things have changed since the Sengoku era. The most recent leader, Kaguya, is growing sickly. He inherited the title of Corps Head early in life, like others have at just 4 years old. Commanding a group of swordsmen is such an undertaking in and of itself, especially for a child. Speaking of swordsmen, the organization has 9 Ashira and 1 Suguko. Besides that, there is an official uniform for slayers. It is cold, heat, and semi-demon resistant. Unfortunately though, the clothing is not resistant to any of the 12 Kizuki. It is quite interesting that the Corps developed a garment that is resistant to lower level demons. Perhaps it has something to do with the iconic wisteria within the series. The uniform itself is reminiscent of a Japanese school uniform, specifically a gakuran. Besides that, not much has changed in the past 300 years. That being said, this period sees the death of many, and at last, a world free of demons. First, during the mission on the Mugen train, Flame Ashira Kyojiro Rengoku dies. His death marks the end of Flame Ashira within the Corps, and is the first of the Hashira in 4 years. Kyojiro does not die in vain though. While his death is admittedly a big deal for the Corps, he leaves behind words that resonate with Tanjiro. Set your heart ablaze. His words of encouragement are probably some of the most well-known in modern anime and manga. Yet this sad end, coupled with Sound Ashira Tengen Uzui almost dying and going into retirement, shows the exact disadvantage the Corps continued to be at. It is something even the Serpent Ashira is aware of, commenting that younger swordsmen do not live as long. That is, until Tanjiro awakens his Demon Slayer mark while fighting Upper Moon 6, Gyutaro. The mark itself is first seen by the demon, who immediately notices how powerful it makes Tanjiro. The Upper Moon is afraid of him, exclaiming, "This brat is gonna cut off my head!" Shortly after the mark resonates with Tanjiro, it spreads just like Yorichi's did. The parallels between the two Sunbreathers only serve to cement Muzan's eventual defeat. To Hashira, Muichiro Tokito and Mitsuri Kanroji awaken their marks next. They are the first of several Hashira to gain the Demon Slayer mark. The importance revolving around the mark is enough for an emergency Hashira meeting to be held, despite the leader, Kaguya, being too sick to attend. The urgency to manifest a mark is not just because a marked one almost defeated Muzan, but also because Tanjiro's demon sister, Nezuko, gained the ability to withstand sunlight. According to Kaguya's wife, this will encourage Muzan to track her down in order to conquer the sun himself. Muzan will stop at nothing to finally walk in sunlight, meaning his pursuit could lead to a full-scale battle. Thankfully, Muichiro is able to explain how he manifested the mark, raising one's body temperature above 102 degrees Fahrenheit and their heart rate over 200 beats per minute. These very conditions mimic a fever and prove just how physically adept the Hashira are. In Muichiro's own words, "Survival is what separates those who manifest the mark from those who don't. It's wanting to survive a life or death situation and going beyond one's limits, something the Hashira are no doubt used to. Therefore, it's important every Hashira trains enough to conjure the Demon Slayer mark, regardless of the fact that they will die early. More marked ones, especially elite swordsmen like the Hashira, can only help their cause against Muzan. While on the topic of Hashira, they aren't the only ones training. Every other swordsman is expected to partake in something known as Hashira training. The training is meant to improve the skills and overall health of not only the lower rank slayers, but Hashira as well. It is a series of nightmarish lessons consisting of training for stamina, flexibility, swordsmanship, and strength. Each section is spearheaded by a different Hashira who specializes in it. And despite how demanding the training is, it doesn't last long because Muzan finally decides to strike. He finds Kaguya's location and has a talk with him that seals both their fates as each moment passes. This meeting sets off a chain of events that changes the core forever. To begin, the Slayers and Hashira are urgently summoned to the Ubuyashiki mansion. It is a mad dash to get there, especially for the Hashira, because they all share such a personal link to Kaguya. A direct attack on the core's leader probably hasn't happened in some years as well, maybe even since the Sengoku era. Unfortunately, the swordsmen are too late. Before them stands a massive fireball that was once the mansion. All that's left in the wreckage in front of the Slayers is none other than the very embodiment of evil himself, a regenerating Muzan. However, the core isn't unprepared for what has occurred. They have a plan to defeat Muzan. But before we get into that, it is important to note that with Kaguya's death, the new leader of the core is his 8-year-old son, Kirya, and he must command the core through the battle against the progenitor of demons, Kimetsuji Muzan. The stone Hashira Gyome Himejima is the first to confront Muzan. He's informed of the plan by Kaguya. Gyome was the only slayer he could tell because the others would not allow Kaguya to use himself as bait. Gyome, willing to follow through, only shows he can see the bigger picture, the greater good. Kaguya's sacrifice is one no one else will permit him to commit. After all, the head of the core is such a valuable, important person. Kaguya acting as bait is only one part of the grand scheme to take Muzan down though. The second part, Insect Hashira Shinobu Kocho worked with the demon Tamayo to produce two poisons. One will attempt to revert Muzan back to human, while the other will age him 50 years every minute. Weakening him is the core's best bet to contend with Muzan and keep him out until sunlight. He has 7 hearts and 5 brains that he can rearrange at will, so simply beheading him is out of the question. Stalling him to daybreak is the core's only option to defeat such a formidable evil. Thankfully, other Hashira and swordsmen arrive to back up Gyome. Even seasoned swordsmen like the Hashira are afraid at the sight of Muzan. But before anyone can take on the Demon King, they are transported into the depths of the Infinity Castle. Just as everyone descends, Muzan declares, "You're all going to hell." Ironic considering Muzan will be among those dead. This is the final stand between good and evil. Several fights occur within the castle, so let's do a quick rundown. Akaza is defeated by Water Hashira, Gyuto Miyoka, and Tanjiro. The Akaza fight is probably one of my favorites from this arc, seeing as the themes and action are unmatched. Meanwhile, Shinobu is killed by the demon Doma, but her death is avenged by her Suguko, Kanao Suyuri, and Inosuke Hashibira. Zenitsu Agatsuma manages to single-handedly kill an Upper Moon himself, granted it was a close battle. If Kaigaku wasn't so new to his powers, Zenitsu would have lost. Although to be fair, he didn't manifest a Demon Slayer mark, so he probably would have won either way. It just came down to narrative decision making. The other moons can be defeated with just one Slayer though. Kokoshibo, who we mentioned before, is only taken down with the manpower of 4 swordsmen, 3 of them being Hashira. In fact, this fight also leads to knowledge that was once forgotten to the ages. Slayers who have unlocked their mark can turn their Nichiren blades bright red, whether it be by friction, holding it in a strong grip, or simply by nature. The bright red katana is able to stop a demon's regeneration down to the molecular level. This serves as the core's trump card against Muzan. He regenerates so quickly, but can't shake the searing pain and disfiguration a red blade causes. Speaking of Muzan, he takes on a battle form that can only be described as grotesque. Multiple hungry mouths decorate his body. At last, Muzan's hideous nature can be seen outwardly. Then, after the respective fights, the surviving swordsmen are ejected from the castle onto the street. There, both Slayers and Hashira take on the Demon King, during which time Muzan's toxic blood almost kills them. If it weren't for the antidote created by the late Tamayo, the core wouldn't have felled Muzan. But of course, Muzan's death is not without tragedy. There are a lot of swordsmen lost within the core, even among the Hashira. The Demon King's death isn't even brought about with a sword. He dies according to plan from direct sunlight. Muzan's demise marks the end of demons as well as the end of the Demon Slayer core. 3 months after Muzan's defeat, with only 2 Hashira remaining, the core officially disbands. Modern era. Interestingly enough, this isn't all for the core. Skipping ahead to more modern times, the descendant of Nezuko and Zenitsu reads his great-grandfather's retelling of the battle against Muzan. The story brings him to tears. Seeing Zenitsu's great-grandson read the tale is a fun tie-in to the modern era and Taisho. Besides that, the last leader of the core, Kirya, is still alive. Ironically, he has set the record for longest living person in Japan, all thanks to breaking the curse. Finally, in the Commodore residence is a shrine with Tanjiro's infamous sword and a picture of the surviving core members. They are all smiling and thankful to have brought about a world without demons. The core have such a turbulent history, riddled with strife, yet they managed to eradicate demons and the demonic lord Muzan. They cemented themselves in history as heroes, even if the tale is slightly inflated by Zenitsu. Really, I wish there was more about the Demon Slayer core. Most of what we know comes from the later parts in the manga and fan books. But with all that being said, as always, I'm SLAYER Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.